Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hola, everybody, and welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. My name is DK, and you are here at another episode of Ask Devin Anything. This is where we reach into our giant grab bag of member questions, and we pull out the most interesting things going on in Burn Nation right now that you're curious about. And so we got about a half an hour today, and we've got several questions from from some members out in Burn Nation. And if you'd like to submit a question, podcast@burnbootcamp.com is that place to go to. And who knows, your question might get answered here on the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I am, like I said, Devin Klein, your personal trainer, leader of all trainers at Burn Nation. And we got Steven's question from Danbury, Connecticut coming in. He's talking about deadlifts when you're experiencing back pain and asking, when I do deadlifts, my back starts to hurt as I lift heavier. And what's going on? Does that mean my form needs to improve? So we're going to talk about deadlifts today. Christy from Mallard Creek asks about balance in terms of entrepreneurship and family life. Her question is, as an entrepreneur struggling with work-life balance, how can I ensure to dedicate enough time to my business while also giving time to my family and giving them the attention they deserve and that they need? Okay. Third question, Katie from Plaza Midwood, North Carolina, is talking about addressing negative self-talk about body image and fitness. What advice do you have for dealing with negative self-talk related to body image and fitness progress? Okay, and finally, Riley from Waukee. She asks, what is the most important leadership lesson you've learned from managing a fitness business? So we're going to dive in to these questions, a little bit of fitness, a little bit of business, right up my sweet spot, okay? Right up the fitness, business categories. Those are very important to me and this intersection of them. So let's dive into Steven's question. And before I do that, I'd like to welcome anybody who is new to the podcast and invite you that if you love today's episode, you learned something, right? That you write it down and remember it, but also go tell us on an Apple review what you learned, because this podcast is about personal development. This is like me and you sitting down together and us having a conversation around making you better, making me better. And I don't know everything, but I do know a lot of things when it comes to being your personal trainer, partnering with your trainers out there in Burn Nation to help you succeed. All right, so let's get into deadlifts. Steven, Danbury, Connecticut. Okay, when I do deadlifts, my back starts to hurt, and as I lift heavier weights, it hurts more. Does that mean my form needs to improve? Okay, let's just go through. Let's start at the very beginning. Does your form need to improve? Who knows? We need to go and we need to say, okay, at the beginning of this, when you do deadlifts, does your back hurt? Is it dull soreness or is it an injury? Okay, so I'm going to assume it's not an injury. My advice would be much different if it was an injury versus if you're just hurt. Okay, or it's not even hurt. It could also just be dull soreness or a little bit of uncomfort. What I'd like to say is that I see so many people derail their fitness journey by their shoulder being just like a little bit aggravated or a little bit sore, and they mistake that for injury, and now they need to go, to a PT for like 10 weeks and do this like really non-essential recovery in order to, like, if you just keep working out and you be cognizant of, not overdoing it, usually a muscle that you're working is a muscle that will work right? A muscle that you're not working or that's dormant is going to start to have problems. So 99% of the time, if you think that you're maybe just sore or injured or got some dull pain, don't mistake that for like injury in which you have to go on the injured reserve list. All right, so I'm going to assume that you have some dull pain, that it's just hurting a little bit. First of all, you got to check your form, check your technique, right? That's what our trainers are here for. Your spine has to stay neutral and you really can't round your back too much. You round your back too much, you put too much emphasis on your lower back extensors, and you here in the deadlift, really it's a back and leg exercise. It's really a posterior chain exercise. So you want to lift with your everything from your cervical spine extensors to your upper trap, lower trap, rhomboids. There's a lot of lat engagement in there, latissimus dorsi. You also have your quads, your hamstrings, your glute. Quads are stabilizers. Your hamstrings, your glute muscles, your calves, the soleus, the gastroc, all the stability muscles in your ankle. The whole posterior chain is really working on the deadlift, and so keeping that flat, neutral back is important, and engaging your upper back muscles. A lot of times when I see people who struggle with, maybe some dull soreness in their lower back is because they're rounding their back and they're leading with the lower back muscles when they deadlift. Really, on a deadlift, you should be so down low. Like, think about squatting, grabbing a hold of the dumbbells or a barbell, but mostly in burn, we're using dumbbells. By the way, barbells are going to fix your pelvic tilt. Well, dumbbells will allow for a natural pelvic tilt to take place and more of a unique range of motion. So then you're going to put your feet flat on the floor inside those dumbbells. You're going to stand straight up. Before you do that, you're going to check to make sure that your belly button is magnetized to your spine, that your chest muscles also are engaged, because if your chest muscles are engaged, all right, what that's going to do is really allow you to have that cognitive check, that awareness on your back. So you're really engaging your entire body for a deadlift. It is a posterior chain movement, but the stabilizer core muscles, stabilizer pectoral muscles are going to be, a part of this too. And when you're lifting, this is the most important thing. All right, all the stuff I just said doesn't matter. This is the most important thing, Stephen. When you're lifting, I want you to focus on doing the following. Push the floor away from you. Don't lift the weight off the floor. Stay in the position. Get low, feet flat on the floor. Grab the dumbbells, chest up. If I can see your logo as a trainer and the wall can see your logo, then I know that your chest is up. Your hips are, generally speaking, parallel or below your knees, depending on your anatomy. And you're going to not lift the weight with your lower back by trying to pry it off the ground or jerk it up. You're going to slowly keep that posture and push through the heels, through the floor, and move the floor away. Move the floor away from you. Push the entire floor away. Okay, don't try to do the deadlift. That's my biggest advice. And then from there, it's form, load, rep manipulation. That's our methods of training. So if your form's good, then you're going to add load. So just keep your form good over time. If you do start to feel, a little dull soreness, hey, do some spot exercises, right? Strengthen those lower back extensors. Do some bird dogs, opposite hand, opposite knee, Supermans, all types of exercises you can do to target the lower back extensors to make them stronger. All right. If you'd like to ask a question like Steven did, podcast@burnbootcamp.com. You can also hit me up on Instagram, devin.klein, and I will gladly bring your question to the podcast. Number 2 is Christy from Mallard Creek. She's concerned with her entrepreneurial journey, okay? A little work-life balance action. How can I ensure that I dedicate enough time to my business while also giving time to my family and dedicating the time and attention they need? Christy, I love that you asked the question this way, because you ask about your business and you ask about family and the time and attention that those things both need. But ask the right questions and you will get the right answers. Ask the wrong questions and you will get the wrong answers. And what I don't see in your question, Christy, is a source of selfishness. What I don't see is asking, how do I create harmony in my life overall? And maybe balance is the wrong word, because balance means like a balance beam. If I put pebbles in a tray on one side of the balance beam, well, that means this other one has less. And I got to give this one more. This balance beam over here has got to have more pebbles so that it kind of evens out. And you're always going to have this teeter-totter of something I got to give somewhere, right? I got to take from this bucket. I got to take the pebbles out of this one. I got to rebalance them over here. I'm taking away from one bucket to feed the other. If you guys follow my content, then it's the Burn lifestyle. That's our framework. It's Burn, which is, it's body, mind, emotion, spirit. Those 4 are you, the inner world. The other 4, outer world, external, out of your control, relationships, time, work, money. So those 8 things really create your experience of the world. And our belief, it's anchored by the first one I mentioned, body. It's anchored by you putting on your calendar, anchoring on your calendar this workout, not this activity, not this exercise, not this uncontrolled, undirected exercise, but this planned, regimented working out, training. You're going to put that on your calendar and you're not going to miss it. That is the act of actually manifesting physically, prioritizing oneself. And you and I both know, unless you prioritize yourself and your energy, you're not going to have energy. You're not going to create emotion that creates motion. You're not going to have that for the other buckets of your life. And you know this. So the number one thing you should do to create harmony in your life is anchor your day in your workout. Provide your life with the opportunity to ignite your physiology at a high level on a daily basis, whether you feel like it or not, by the way. And that is where the body starts to, the cup runneth over to the next section, mind. When I do excuse me, when I do something that I do not want to do because I know it's good for me, right? You are now creating resiliency and discipline and consistency. So that's where I would go with your question. Now let me get explicit, and let me answer it verbatim. So I might ask a different question is really what I'm saying. I might ask, how do I harmonize my life through focusing on myself so I can give enough to my business and to my family? So if you do that, if you're anchoring your day, and you might already do that, well then now we need to go to the next level. Okay, your business. This has to do with time, work, money, those categories. Your family, that has to do with relationships and time. And all of that has to do with spirit, being connected to something bigger than yourself and having a sense of purpose in this world. Okay, so here's some answers. Set some clear boundaries, right? You do that by anchoring your day. So I don't miss my workout, family, work, business. I'm not missing it. Oh, Devin's a person that never misses his workout, right? That's selfish. Okay, well, say what you will. Do I believe it's selfish? I do not. Therefore, it's not. Okay? I set those clear boundaries, and I don't let anybody else penetrate my force field of my own schedule. That is my schedule. I anchor my day there. Then, from there, it is very, very, very simple. I also, the next most important thing, the reason you prioritize yourself is so that you can give energy to your family, the next most important people in your life, people that you love, people that drive your purpose. Then I anchor time with them. So my workouts in the morning, first thing in the morning, the last thing that I do every day is 2 hours and uninterrupted, 6 to 8, 7 to 9, somewhere in there, family time, depending on the day. And everything else for me is focused on my career. You don't have to be that way. That's just the way that I am. And I prioritize myself so that I can prioritize energy for my family, so that after I work a long day and grow my passions and pour into myself and feel productive with my time, that I can go home and be the high energy person that I need for them, that picks my kids up no matter what type of day I had, and gives them that energy that I received earlier in the day from that workout. So harmony, Christy, is the answer. Okay, so if you guys want to get your questions answered, podcast@burnbootcamp.com. We're going to move on to Katie's question. She's trying to address this negative self-talk that she has going on. She has negative self-talk like many of us do about fitness, about body image. Morgan tells a classic story in which we both got into bodybuilding very early because we thought that's what we needed to do as young, 20-somethings. Coming from her perspective, a career at Kellogg's in which she was climbing the corporate ladder. From my perspective, a career in baseball in which I was trying to win the Cy Young Award. Both of those things never happened. The two things that never happened that are probably the biggest things that never happened in our lives because it put us in this position today. But when we started off in this new world, we were like, what do we do with our hands? We had no idea how to navigate the fitness world. We just thought, hey, if I guess we're going to be in the fitness world, we need to be these super fit, ultra cut, individuals that look the part, right? And turns out, not only is it counterintuitive that people actually do not relate to you when you're super fit, because it's A, dangerous to get that fit and stay that fit. And I wouldn't even call it fit. I would say, because like in bodybuilding, you're really just showing up for like that day. And it's just one snapshot in time, really. So it's important that you realize that this whole bodybuilder world is dangerous. Now, if it's a sport is dangerous in general. And if you're going to play basketball, you might injure your ankle. If you're going to play football, you might get a concussion. If you're going to bodybuild, you might, pass out during your cut. Sports are dangerous in general. So I'm not demonizing bodybuilding. I'm just saying, unless you're a professional bodybuilder, you're probably not going to be that inspired by somebody that's like 6% body fat and their abs have abs, right? You're not going to be necessarily inspired by that. And that was counterintuitive. We didn't realize that. And so we both had a bunch of negative self-talk around that time in our lives, Morgan especially, just being a female. And, women on average tend to care more about people or emotions, and men on average tend to care more about like things or a logic, I guess you could say. And so how do we address negative self-talk? I'm going to give you 5 quick steps. These are 5 quick steps. I think anybody can do these. Number 1 is self-awareness. It's acknowledging your thought. It's recognizing that you have this thing, this consciousness that is universal. It's going to talk to you, and it's called your consciousness, or your mentality, or whatever you want to call it. But it's this voice in your head, right? And you constantly are having a conversation with this voice. How is that voice? How is that conversation? That's a really good place to start. The voice in your head, the way you're communicating with yourself. What is the quality of that communication? Show me the quality of that communication. I will show you the quality of your life. If you're somebody that says, I'm not a fitness person, I don't know, my family, we've always been, people like us do things like this. We've always been big boned. We've always, we just eat whatever we want. Southern cooking, that's comfort food. It's in our DNA. We love to cook. All these things. A lot of Indian cultures get that. We love our curry. We love our everything's carb based. There's a lot of carbs in the Indian cuisine, and in the general everyday person's cuisine. Just by a choice, because carbs are delicious. I get it. I understand it. But we have to acknowledge our thoughts using that collective, that voice, that unconscious voice in your head that's just constantly talking to you. You've got to make that a conscious interaction. That's number 1, because when you do, now you're going to find areas of opportunity in which you say, hey, why would I speak to myself in that way? Ooh, that's interesting. And then we get to apply curiosity, right? It's like the wedge that you put in the door. It's like, you're knocking on somebody's door, knock, knock, and they open it up, and they just open it up a little bit. Let's say like it's your friend and you want to mess with them, and you put your foot in the door, opens it up a little bit more. You start to nudge your way in there. All we're doing with self-awareness is stopping, sticking our foot in the door, nudging the door open a little bit, holding it, and saying, wait a second, should I let that thought in? Should I let this process of thought, this thinking, this pattern of thought, should I let this dictate my life? Is this who I am? Or is this some form of this unconsciousness talking to me? Is this my thought? Am I actually feeling this way? Like, do I actually believe that I'm not a fitness person? Do I actually believe that what I have to do in order to become somebody that practices fitness every day and changes their lifestyle, do I really think that's impossible? Or am I just repeating or regurgitating something that I've heard in the past? So when you put your foot in the door and you say, hey, should I let this thought come in and party or not? What you're really doing is you're like filing away good thoughts versus bad thoughts, useful ones versus non-useful ones. And the way I wrote about this in my book, Stop Starting Over, is I said there's this like 7-foot bouncer named Rocco, and he's standing outside of that, that door. If the door was your entryway into your brain, and the party in your brain was the metaphor for the thoughts that you let in versus that you don't, you've got to you've got to embody this Rocco, this kind of bouncer version of yourself that's going to. This is just your consciousness coming into play as unconscious thoughts come in and out of your brain all day long. You've got to decide, hey, is that the thought or is that my thought? My thoughts can come in and party. The thoughts don't get to, right? Everybody at some point has thought, I'm not enough. I could never do that. That's just not me. People like me don't do things like that because you have some preconceived notion of who you are and who you aren't. Are those things true or not? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. So when we talk about, Katie, self-talk, negative language around body image and fitness, usually it's that unconscious voice that was shaped by everybody else who's ever lived and their collective thoughts, and then probably super informed by your parents, your authorities in your life, the people that you looked up to. So a lot of times unedited, unaudited thoughts, like thoughts that you just let into the party. There's no Rocco at the there's no bouncer at the door. They just come in, and no matter what, those thoughts are you now, and they're a part of your attitude, your effort, and beliefs. You got to shape those things. It's called mindset. You got to shape your attitude, your effort, and your belief systems, and you don't get to do that unless if you have a free pass for every thought to automatically be owned by you. You do not own the thoughts. You're not the only person that's ever asked, oh, why do I have this negative, image of my body? Oh, I look so fat today. Like, do you? Okay. Or is that just the unconscious forcing you to, determine whether or not you have this bouncer at your door? Okay, so that's basically it. That's acknowledging thoughts. That's self-awareness. That's where we start, Katie. We could continue to unpack that forever and ever and ever. But let's just dwell there and let's start to get self-aware. And when these thoughts do arise, I want you to embody some version of yourself who's a bouncer. And I want you to say, hey, is this my thought or is this the thought? Only let positive thoughts in. Kick those negative ones to the curb and watch them right off into the sunset because they were never yours to begin with. And it will not be helpful if you take something that's not yours and you try to own it. All right, and so Brian's question comes from Lake Murray, South Carolina. He's got a question about recovery. So if you had to choose one recovery tip that everyone should follow, what would it be and why? Oh, this starts with our philosophy. Eat, train, recover, repeat, right? Eat clean food, train hard, planned, dedicated, track your progress, recover, anchored by sleep, obviously, and repeat. Consistency, dedication, okay? It's very simple. Since the history of fitness, people have tried the following strategy that is the complete opposite of our strategy, which is pills, fads, diets, shots, doesn't work, try something new. And that's gone on for a very, very, very long time. I got to separate my personal beliefs, what I do personally versus the advice that I would give you. Can you do that for a moment? Because I'm going to be very opinionated when I talk about myself. What I do isn't what anyone else should do. What I do is unique to me. My belief system is that pills, potions, fads, diets, shots, I've tried it all. I've tried everything. Anything that you can think about trying, I've tried. Yes, that too. That as well. What else are you thinking about? Yeah, I've tried all of it. Everything. Every aftermarket, secondary solution to gain the edge. Everything. I was a professional athlete with mediocre talent, right? The reason I was a prospect for the San Francisco Giants was because I worked my tail off. I worked it off. So, what is my recovery tip for you, Brian? It's not going to be about sleep. Okay, that's obvious. What it's going to be about is the secondary piece of recovery, which isn't shots, which isn't GLP-1s or semaglutide or any of these things. It's going to be eat, sleep, train, repeat as your foundation. For me, I'm not going to layer on any biohacking on top of that. I don't need it because every way that I want to feel is taken care of by that Simple formula. Now, if you'd like to, and you have the foundational formula, the universal formula that's never going to change, and you'd like to, like Morgan does, like try this biohacking stuff to try to gain the edge, by all means, do it, and it could work for you. Okay? But I'm not going to preach that person. I would say you should never take a shot unless you have a nutrition routine that's dialed in, recovery routine that's dialed in, and a training regimen that's dialed in, and you've been able to do that consistently for a long period of time. I'm talking like years. Not days, not months, not quarters, years. Not even a year. Years, multiple years. And then if you want to do that stuff, great. Probably not going to work that well because you've already taken care of the issue. You've already identified with the problem and you've solved it with just those simple, basic, fundamental things. Okay. Here's my tip for you, Brian. 10 minutes before your workout, myofascial release. I got through all that stuff just to tell you that. 10 minutes, myofascial release. If you're going to work out your legs, then I want myofascial release on a foam roller on your legs for 10 minutes. That's it. Very simple concept. Pretend like there's a knot or a marble in a straw. And you're going to roll that marble down that straw. Your straw is the muscle. The marble is the knot in your muscle. And that's your mentality. And do it on both quads evenly, both hamstrings evenly for about 10 minutes. That's all you need. Okay. Riley from Waukee is talking about leadership, okay? And she wants to know, what is the most important leadership lesson you've learned from managing a fitness business? The most important lesson that I've learned from running a fitness business that is a company for families, ran by families, owned by families, franchised by families, to deliver a quality of life that's maximized for the families that we serve. I've learned so much about human beings, so much about people, so much about how to inspire people, so much about the uniqueness, the idiosyncrasies of different individuals and how to communicate and interact with them. But the most important thing that I've learned probably as a leader is that people don't necessarily care what you say. They first care what you've built, and then they care what you do. What do I mean by that? Like, Burn Boot Camp in my head has always been a big thing. It's always been the next wave. It's always been the game changer. It's always been the paradigm-shifting business that this country has always needed. And knowing that this country leads the world in the regards of health and wellness, or seemingly should, that we have a great responsibility on us to shift the paradigm globally and ignite a global health transformation. This has been my thought process since, maybe year 2. What I learned is the following, and this is very, very important, Riley, is that if you're an entrepreneur, you don't build the business. The business is built by people, and you build people. You see the difference? A lot of people just want to build a business. What we're trying to do is create a team of individuals who have a mission, a common language, a common bond, who are spiritually connected to something greater than themselves, who show up every day and have an example, somebody to follow, someone whose actions speak for them. And it's backed up by their words, because words are important. But when you have those ingredients, you will realize that your actions and your thoughts and your activity and your performance, your ability to help manage people up, lead them up to the next level, all these things they start and stop with you, and they have about a 6-month lag time in which you'll be able to see the fruits of your labor. The things I'm working on right now, as at this stage in the game, they won't come to fruition until 2026, and we're in 2025. So the most important leadership lesson that I've learned is definitely that. People build businesses, and my job is to build people, okay? And people are moved by emotion. Emotion is life. If you don't People say, like, why are you so emotional? Why are you so emotional all the time? Well, because emotion, A, is inevitable. Our limbic system, our amygdala, the base of our brainstem, okay, our energy must pass through the limbic system before the prefrontal cortex. In other words, we must feel before we think. We feel, then we think. We are feeling creatures first. We are thinking creatures second. And so I've learned that people are driven by emotion, and that the best thing that I can do as a leader is to be emotionally intelligent and control my emotions, because it's what I do that's most important, not what I say. So thank you guys, everybody, for submitting questions into podcast@burnbootcamp.com, or to me, devin.klein on Instagram, or at burnbootcamp on Instagram. We appreciate it. We've got a ton of questions in the grab bag. I'm looking for the most intriguing, the most thought-provoking, the most intelligently oriented questions to give Burn Nation Ask Devin Anything episode that is increasingly interesting. These questions were great today. Thank you all for participating and being here. Leave us a review. Subscribe on Apple. We appreciate it. It is our oxygen, and the way we get your feedback is through Apple reviews. So leave one there, please. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.